Alright, welcome back to the Sleep Coach Nuff channel. In this video we're going to look at our tops, chops, traps and slaps for round 6 of the 2024 NRL Fantasy season. So for those that are new to the channel or new to the concept, how it works is if we've got a good option that we want to trade in, then we'll give that the tops. If we've got an option we want to trade out that we think is a good idea, we'll give them the chop. If there's a trading option that's probably not the best idea on the table, well, it's potentially a trap. And if there's a trade out option that we need to reverse on, well, we need to give ourselves a good slap. So as always, we'll go through the positions starting at hooker. And the top pick in the hooker position this week is Peter Mamazoulis from South Sydney. So low 300k pick. It looks like they've brought him in for Damien Cook. Obviously, job security is a bit questionable. But I guess at this point of the season, there's not a lot of cheap hooker options that pop up out of the ground. So I guess if you do need to downgrade and need some hooker cover, he would be the pick this week, but probably not the strongest of the tops picks for this week. On the chopping block, we have got Damien Cook, so obviously with Mamazoulis in, means Damien Cook is out. It may just be like the 1 week rev up that you see in the past where get them on in the New South Wales Cup and they carve up and then get them back into NRL with that renewed confidence. So I think either way, the fact that he is in a position to be dropped means that Damien Cook probably isn't the best option for our teams. There's probably a handful of options in that premium hooker category that we could bring in for him, and I think would be a more successful pick across the season. But given he's not playing this week, you can definitely get out of him with confidence. The trap this week, again, I'm pretty sure I mentioned him in the trap last week, and it may have sounded like I didn't know what I was talking about. But Tyson Smoothie had another decent scoring performance. But the reality is bench hookers, aren't traditionally reliable fantasy scorers. So, if you think Lightning will strike 3 times, good luck to you. But I think, he will burn you eventually. So I wouldn't go near that pick, even though he's got a nice break even. And, the Broncos are going pretty well. And the slap this week, I've gone with Brandon Smith. So a little bit of a down performance last week, but probably had to play a bit of a different role given the context of the game. It was quite wet, miserable conditions. Plus, with all the Roosters' injuries, he had to play big minutes. So, he probably wasn't as explosive with his running game as he'd like to be. Or, his sort of creativity side with his, ability to kick 40-20s and stuff probably wasn't able to be displayed with the conditions. So don't go off one bad performance and think, oh, it's not worth it. I guess his value comes in the fact of things like his dual position. He's not going to be playing, or he's going to be playing for the Roosters during Origin. He's not going to be playing in Origin, is what I was originally going to say. So he does offer that value that isn't explicitly points on the field every week. He does have that upside. He does have the dual position. He does have the availability that make him a viable asset. And realistically, I guess unless you're going up to an elite hooker option, there's probably not that much value in trading out of Brandon Smith this week. In the middles, and the best trading option this week, I've gone with Jermaine Hopgood. So there's a couple of cheapy options that you could sort of look to bring in, but I saw a few people are bringing in more sort of keeper gun type options, and I thought, well, the best one of those that we've got is Jermaine Hopgood. So I think he probably wasn't as popular as a Pat Carrigan, which obviously, given the Broncos' middle rotation this week, is probably a great idea. But if we're looking a bit more long term, Carrigan is a shoe in for Origin, and Hopgood he's on the fringes of the Queensland team, but he may just miss out on a spot, given they've got Carrigan, they've got Cotter, probably sort of very similar type players to what Hopgood could offer um, in that arena. So yeah, I think if you are looking to bring in a keeper in that middle position this week, Jermaine Hopgood does have the dual position as well, which is nice middle and edge if you need cover there as well. So that's probably the other little advantage he has over the likes of a Carrigan and those types. On the chopping block this week, again, we've gone with Satili Tupanua. So he's one of the more popular trade outs this week, and a lot of people probably held him last week just due to the fact that they needed 17 players on field. I still did the move because I just wanted to get him out of the team. But yeah, named on the edge again this week, and we've seen as soon as there's an injury, he'll just get thrown out in the centres. Excuse me. So yeah, I think you can get if you still got Tupanui, you can get out of him without any issues or concerns. The trap this week, I've gone with Stefano Uti from the Tigers. And it's not to say that it's a bad pick in the sense that he has looks like he has taken another step and his game has gone to another level this year. I guess the worry with that is that if his game has gone to another level and he's already been talked about on the fringes of the Origin team, does he get a run for New South Wales this year? So again, this is looking a little bit more long term because I think if you're bringing him in at his price, you are expecting him to be a cut price keeper. But are you willing to sort of hold him through that Origin period if he's going to play for New South Wales? So that's, I guess, a question you need to ask yourself. Um, if he isn't, he does offer good buy coverage after the first Origin. So probably what I would suggest is if you do want to get him in your team, you might have to pay a bit more down the track, but I'd put him on the watch list. Wait until first Origin comes out. If he's not in the team, then he'll cover 16, 19. I think he even covers like the 17 and 20 round games that are quite tricky to cover. Um, and then yeah, you can have him for the rest of the season after that. And the slap list this week goes on Isaiah Yo. So on the buy this week, a lot of people, trade him out because I can't use him on the buy. He's got a lot of cash on his head, but I'm pretty sure he's up there if he's not the highest scoring player in fantasy this season. So it's only 1 week. Just hold. You'll want to bring him back in next week, and it's not worth the two trades to get a few extra points this week. So if you did sort of pick him with a plan that okay, I'm going to play him in the first 5 rounds, get a leg up on the points, and then trade him out until after Origin, and then bring him back in. Okay, that makes sense. You've got a plan. Stick to your plan. But if you've brought him in because you think, oh yeah, he's a good player, he scores lots of points, and I just want all the points, well, don't trade him out because you'll just want to trade him back in next week. And then you may want to trade him out through Origin as well. Onto the edge position, and so the tops pick this week, and this is maybe just a bit of regret on my behalf, but Cleese Haas from the Titans. So I traded him out last week with Fafita named to start, and he was on the bench, and I thought, oh, he's probably peaked in price, but he played 50 minutes, seemingly in the middle. I didn't see the game, but Fafita and Fermal both played 80, so I'm assuming that he played in the middle, and then he got named in the 13 jumper this week. And he's got the family pedigree of playing big minutes in the middle and doing the business. So it might have been one that got away from me. Um, and I guess particularly maybe not now, but if he continues to get named in that position, could get dual position by round 12, 13 into Origin, when he could be really useful for our teams. So I think it's not too late to get on the pick. Even though he has made a bit of money already, which I was grateful for. But yeah, I think this will be the last chance if you do want to get on that train. On the chopping block this week, I've gone with Joe Chan. I always can never remember him and his dad's name. I always get them confused. But Joe Chan, I'm pretty sure I've nailed it. So named in the 18 jumper this week, I think Sean Blaw's on the edge. So it looks like that he has lost his spot there in the team. And I think with the amount of cheapy options this week, this is the perfect chance to get out of the pick. He still has money to make, and another opportunity may come up. But I think we'll pivot and we'll go in a different direction. So I think if you wanted to get out of Joe Chan, this is the week to do it. The trap this week, I've gone with Angus Crichton. So um, I just I did talk about this in the Super Coach video, and I've tried to pick different players in this format. It is a different game, but the reality is with Angus is that he's named on the edge. He did play 80 minutes last week, but last week's game was a complete anomaly in terms of you're never going to have the same sort of combination of injuries and send offs and that. Um, or not never, but very rarely will you have that same combination. And with Nat Butcher named as well, I think what would happen, assuming everyone's healthy and fit, is Butcher will play 80, Angus Crichton will come off, and Tupanura will come on. So I don't think Crichton will play 80 again this week. I don't think, you know, it's a guaranteed sort of thing. So I think, if you are looking for an edge pick, I know he's relatively cheap and he should have dual position status. I can't fully remember. I haven't looked at him that closely, if I'm being honest. But I just think it's a pick that we should avoid. Um, there's probably better options. Even I guess at that price point, you could either go down for a cheaper option or try and find some more cash to get a more nailed on option, I suppose. And then the slap pick this week, I've gone with Brendan Piacora. So when I was looking at the footy statistics site, it's still got him as one of the most traded out players this week. I mean, if you've held him this long, he's not that far away from coming back. I just keep the faith. Particularly this week, I, I know my team's not too bad. But maybe there is other teams where there's lots of injuries, suspensions, and stuff. I managed to dodge a lot of those bullets in fantasy. But I just think if you wanted to keep him this long, you should just try to hold out for the rest of the time. Onto the halves, and so the top trading this week, I've gone with Sean Johnson. Um, I guess I tipped in Jamal Fogarty at a bit of a cheaper price last week, and SJ outperformed him. So let's just bring in the gun, you know. Um, and I guess the great thing about fantasy is you can sort of, if you can swing the budget, you can have Sean Johnson and Cleary and Hines and Cherry Evans, all of the sort of gun options in the halves. Um, so yeah, obviously we'll play a lot more through Origin, given he won't play for Queensland or New South Wales. The Warriors are looking good. It's a bit of a no brainer if you are looking for a half to get him in. On the chopping block, I've got Adam Reynolds. So um, I guess he's one of the ones we always talk about as a bit of a trap. Because obviously he does kick goals and stuff, which is one of the great things we look for in fantasy scoring halves. But we also like it when they run the ball, and Reynolds is really more of that distributor, game management, organizer. Obviously, kick meters he has a lot of, but he probably just doesn't run the ball enough to be fantasy relevant. So I think he's one, and you've got a good excuse this week to chop him. So if you've got him, feel free. On the trap list, and it's not to say that I won't bring him into my team this week, just full disclosure, but I've got Jai Gray, so obviously coming in for Latrell, and we'll get 3 games, which is enough to make a bit of money out of him. But I think that's just it. It's only going to be the 3 games. I know a few people are calling for Latrell to move to the centres. I just don't think they'll do that. I think they probably pay him a bit too much money to put him there. Plus, they've also pretty much brought in Jack Whiten to play left centre, so I can't imagine they'll shift Whiten to the right or Latrell to the right centre. They're both very much left-sided players. Um, you know, unless maybe Cody Walker gets injured and they could slot Whiten into 5/8. Because again, I don't think they'll move Cody Walker around too much. Um, yeah, so I think it could be a good pick, but would only be that short term play. I definitely wouldn't be bringing him in expecting him to be a season long keeper. Um, so yeah, so just weigh that up. Like I said, I'm pretty close to bringing him in this week, if I'm being honest. Um, but yeah, I think if someone has to go out of those cheaper options, I think he's the one you can let go. And the slap this week, I've gone with Nathan Cleary. So people still trading him out. He's going to be back next week by all reports. So hang on 1 week. He was going to be on the buy anyway, so it's not like you sort of should be planning to trade him out this week to bring him back in next week. That's just ridiculous. Just hang on one more week and then come back and enjoy the extra trade that you've got. In the centres, so I had put Kyle Ira as the best buy. Um, I had slightly changed that and I forgot to edit the video to adjust to that. um, but I think he is, a great buy in the centres, probably the top buy in the centres this week. And given particularly we've lost Talangi, it's a pretty easy swap between those two. I guess the only other issue, a bit similar to Talangi, would be around job security. So with uh, Talakai rather on the bench, it may just be filling in for a couple of weeks until their forwards injuries sort of subside, and then Iro could find himself back out on the outer. But I guess the fact that he's playing now, he's got a pretty good break even this week after his great score last week. Um, Means if you want to get on, this is the week to do so. Because even if he does drop out of the team, he's probably only one injury away from coming back in. And then if you sort of wait until that time, then you may have already missed the boat. So I think he's still a top pick. Maybe the best buy is a bit overreaching, but we'll talk about a potential best buy in the next slot. On the chopping block, I've gone with Zach Laybutt. So for those who brought him in, unfortunately, he's out for the season with ACL. So best of luck in your recovery, Zach. Um, Unfortunately, they've named, or not unfortunately, he's a good player, but they've named Tommy Chester this week at the Cowboys, but he's only wing fullback eligible. So can't do a like for like there, which would be pretty handy potentially. But you've got Ethan Strange that's doing well. You've got Kale Iro. For those who got on James Schiller, he's dual position. So plenty of cheaper options to sort of fill in for Labour. Or potentially, if you've got the money, you can hit one of the guns. And saying that, one of the guns that I would avoid this week as a bit of a trap is the Hammer. Um, and it's not to say that he's a bad player or anything. It's just, again, if we're looking a bit more forward to Origin, we've talked about picks like Pat Carrigan and that. Yeah, they're going to be good, but, you're just going to have to trade them out. I think the Hammer's one of those. So, he's probably got one of the centre spots now down for Queensland. And with the Dolphins, that they've got a great bye schedule as a club, and that they play around 13, 16, and 19. So the flip side is for players like the Hammer, it means they're actually going to miss those 3 games and not be available for your super coach team anyway. So there's probably a bit less value in picking someone like that. Um, so yeah, so I guess if you want to bring him in on a short term basis, I understand, but just know you probably will have to trade him out through Origin. And the slap this week, I've gone with Ruben Garrick. So he got a 1 or something last week, and obviously out this week with the HIA. But don't trade him out for that. He's a keeper in the centre position. He kicks goals, scores tries. He's always keen to run the ball and has an offload and all those sort of great things we look for. Um, so, obviously it stings that you won't have him this week. He'll lose some value, but the reality is when you've got keepers, the value doesn't really matter because you've got them in your team already. So just keep a hold of Garrick. Find another way if you want to bring in an IRO or a cheap wing fullback option, that sort of thing. And speaking of wing fullbacks, so probably my actual pick for best buy this week is Chevy Stewart. So it has been named for the Raiders at fullback. And with the news that Rapana will probably miss Rapana, sorry, I'll get the name right one day. About 6 to 8 weeks with that knee injury that he copped. Um, Probably means there's good job security. If Stewart didn't believe in Ricky Stewart, that is, didn't believe in the pick, he probably just moved Seb Chris back to fullback like he's done in previous years, and that'll be the end of it. But they obviously think he's good enough to play in the grade, so I think he will get a good run at it. So I guess he probably has that advantage over Eero and Jai Gray in that extended job security. And the reality is, we probably only really want him for that 6 to 8 weeks, make your money, and then we'll try to get you to a gun wing fullback. So I think yeah, he is the best buy this week, um, and yeah, he'll be the first one sort of drafted into my team when we do the round preview tomorrow. So come back and have a look at that. Dane Mariner on the chopping block this week, so has a back injury, and I guess he's in that middling sort of price range where you can either get these cheapies in if you want to make some money, or if you've already brought the cheapies in, you can upgrade him to a keeper. So makes sense to chop him at this time. I've got CNK on the trap list, and again, not the strongest shout. I think he is an okay option. I just note that he's probably priced at what you're going to get in terms of output, so don't expect him to make a lot of money. Right, and at his price, he is a cheaper option to those premium options. But that's also because his scoring is a little bit below those premium options. So I do love the pick and the player. He's a hard worker. He's always sniffing around, and that's one of the qualities we look for in our wing fullbacks or our fullbacks in Supercoach is that work rate through the middle, because they're always an opportunity of getting runs or line breaks, or getting on the end of a line break and scoring a try. Um, but yeah, I think just he's not quite at that premium level. So I guess if you bring him in, just don't expect that level of output. And the slap this week, I've gone with Blake Taff. So, looked like he was on one last week, scored that try in the first minute. May have also had a line break or some other sort of attacking stat. I can't remember off the top of my head. Um, but then obviously copped the high tackle from Dom Young and had to go off. Um, so obviously it will sort of put a bit of a plateau on his cash generation. But it did look like after a bit of a slow start to the season, he was hitting his straps there in the fullback spot. Um, and given some of the other injuries there at the Dogs, I don't think Steve Crichton, the fullback, is a long term solution. Taff will have his mandatory 11 days off and then slot straight back in. Excuse me, itchy nose. And we'll continue to do the job. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on who you should look at and maybe who you should not look at necessarily for your trading this week. Obviously, if you've got any questions or comments or thoughts or want to get opinions on other players, feel free to add them below this video. Uh, if you enjoy NRL fantasy content or just this type of analysis, remember to give the video a like. Subscribe for all the fantasy sports content on this channel. And other than that, we'll catch you in the next one.